It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you to the Mayor's Hispanic Heritage Committee for allowing me to be here with you. When I was a little girl, like many of the students that are here, I worked hard to excel in school. I did my homework, I earned good grades, I wanted to go to college. But in my country of birth, where education is advertised as free, being a good student is not good enough. I was born in Cuba. My dad was a political prisoner sentenced to 30 years for attempting to overthrow Fidel Castro. He was released after 20 years in prison. My uncle was sentenced to 9 years. My mother did all she could to provide for me and my brother, and that in Cuba meant going along with the government, doing what you are asked to do to avoid retribution. I was born and raised under Castro's government, where by the age of 13, I was both a pionera and a gusana. At school, I was a pionera, an organization you belong to whether you like it or not, if you want to have opportunities or the chance at the few opportunities available in Cuba. I was indoctrinated by the government, made to wear a red beret and a red scarf, symbols of communism, made to repeat daily the slogan, Pioneros por el comunismo, seremos como el Che. No one asked me if I wanted to be like him, but in Cuba it didn't matter. I learned never to repeat conversations between my mom and my dad about the shortcomings of the government, family living in the U.S., or my dad and uncle's attempts to overthrow Castro. At home, I knew my dad and uncle were survivors, as many less fortunate than them had been executed by firing squads. We talked about our family in Miami, Cuba before Castro, and the freedoms enjoyed here in the U.S. We listened to U.S. radio stations through shortwave radio. And as a pastime, I drew pictures from an old Reader's Digest of American ads showing people drinking Coke and eating hamburgers, things I had never seen or had before. Navidad and Nochebuena were stories told by my mom and my abuela of times long gone in Cuba. All this made me a gusana, a worm, or escoria, scum, labels used for people who did not agree with the government, including 13-year-olds. We were harassed by the government, who many times came to our house in the middle of the night to threaten our family. Watched by the Committee for Defense of the Revolution, an organization placed in every neighborhood to serve as a watchdog, to report counter-revolutionary activity, making neighbors and family turn against each other. We lived with the fear that at any day, any time, the government would take my father again. Early on, I learned that academic excellence was not good enough. My student record had been stained. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because my father was a political prisoner, and because I had relatives in the U.S., a double whammy in Castro's Cuba, with very, very bad consequences. I learned the government decided if you went to college or not and what you would study. I learned that it didn't matter that I had the highest GPA in my school. In Castro's Cuba, you had to be communist to get ahead, and I wasn't communist enough. On May 18, 1980, our lives changed. My family and I were crammed, along with 30 other people, in a 10-person boat destined to the U.S. in what was called the Mariel. I was 13 years old. The Cuban government made our boat leave the port in spite of a storm in the Gulf of Mexico. We quickly found ourselves in the dark. Waves punched the boat left and right, and soon we were sick to our stomachs. We were drenched in salt water and vomit. Some time passed before the captain announced we were adrift. Our motors had failed. The captain called for help. A light lit up the dark sky. Sometime later, we all heard the propeller of a helicopter. It was a Coast Guard helicopter who had spotted us. They took my grandmother on a stretcher and disappeared into the dark sky. The next thing I remember, it's a bright light of a Coast Guard vessel named the Vigorous. A decision was made to rescue the women and the children only. The man would stay on the boat and help would be called for them. A man carried me and passed me to another and then another until I finally set foot on the ship. My brother came after, and then finally my mother, who climbed her way up the belly of the ship holding onto a rope ladder hanging above the waves between our boat and the Vigorous. We said goodbye to my father, not knowing if we would see him again. There was a sense of relief, but we were very scared. My mother, brother, and I lay together on the floor of the ship. I was too sick to sit. My mother took my brother's belt and put it on her wrist and around his leg, fearing that he'd get up and fall overboard. We spent 3 days aboard the ship watching many other rescues. 27 people lost their lives that night. A young guardsman brought me an orange and an inflatable raft, and he placed it in the middle of the ship for me. We wore the same clothes. The smell of food made my stomach turn every day. Only the drops of orange juice, which the young guardsman squeezed in my mouth every morning, stayed down. Around us, other officers tried to figure out what to do with an infant who had been rescued. Someone suggested filling a glove with milk, poking a hole in a finger, and trying to feed him. That didn't work. 3 days later, I sat down on the floor for a picture with the guardsman who had taken care of me. He took his cap and he put it on my head. I could barely sit straight. Someone snapped the picture and I smiled shyly. My family reunited the next day in Key West, and that day we began the rest of our lives, with only the clothes on our backs, a Polaroid picture, and a blue cap. We started from scratch right here in Tampa. No money, no English. However, within a few weeks, my father and mother were working and we rented our first home. My brother and I were signed up for summer school to learn English. 3 months later, I was enrolled in 8th grade. I was told my English was too good, and I was placed in regular English classes, and from that point on, I learned English in math, science, history. At home, my brother, my grandmother, and I shared a tiny bedroom. We didn't turn on the air conditioning or the heater to save money. Our weekend outing was walking to the local gas station to buy gum. We didn't mind. We were happy, and we were free. I graduated from Leto High School, as many other Latinos did, but few of my friends went on to college, many unaware of the opportunities. I didn't know much more, but I knew college was not an option. It was the only option. It took 7 years to complete my associate's degree, not because I lacked gray matter. It was rather a shortage of green matter, or mula, as the Mayor's Hispanic Heritage Committee likes to call it around here, and lack of knowledge about resources and opportunities. My parents, a businessman and an administrator before Castro, had now earned a living washing dishes and packaging vegetables to support us. I worked to pay for college. Like many students today, working full-time made me ineligible to receive financial aid and kept me from attending school full-time. Like many today, I didn't know about grants or scholarships. For the past 15 years, I've been blessed with the opportunity to do exactly what I was denied in Cuba, to help ensure equity and access for all, to share information about admissions, scholarships, financial aid, in hopes that students like those here do not give up on their dreams of earning a college degree simply because they can't afford it. I've been fortunate to work with our community to raise money for the USF Latino Scholarship, which, as you heard, provides funding for students from low-income families, many of whom are the first in their families to graduate from high school. Thanks to USF's leadership and the vision of the USF Latin Community Advisory Committee, the generosity of our Tampa Bay community, including this committee. I have been blessed to work with students who, like me, recognize that our parents came to this great country so that we would have these opportunities, and we cannot let them down. There will be obstacles in our way, there have been in mine, but whenever I was afraid, I thought about how difficult it must have been for my parents to leave all they ever knew. I think about my mother, who worked 10 long hours packaging vegetables every day so that I could have this opportunity. I think about our journey to the U.S., how we risked our lives in our pursuit of freedom, and I realize that I can overcome anything. What will you think about? What will our students think about? It may be something different, but they will too find strength in their families' struggles and hope in their families' accomplishments. I am blessed and thankful with the opportunity I have every day to pay it forward. So thankful, I decided years ago I'd find the guardsman who took care of me those 3 days aboard the Vigorous to thank him for his kindness. I didn't have his name, only a picture, but after 26 years, I found him. For years, I had emailed the Vigorous but had never received a response. In 2001, I accompanied my father to a citizenship interview. To our surprise, the officer who interviewed him had been on the Vigorous in 1980. Imagine that. I asked him if he would identify the person, and the next day I sent him a scan of the picture, and he sent me a name, Larry Mancuso. I called and I emailed the National Archives, I Googled the name, I emailed the Vigorous and the Coast Guard, requested muster rolls, nothing. After 4 years of failed attempts, in September of 2005, I received an email from the Vigorous, a suggestion to post my message on a website for Coasties. I received emails from people all over the country, but no one knew anyone by that name. I later discovered I could post a picture on the site, so my husband posted my 26-year-old picture, another wave of emails, and then finally a phone call. I'm the Coastie you're looking for. My name is Rocky. Please call me. Rocky and I talked for hours. 6 months later, April of 2006, I received a phone call from one of Rocky's crew members, an invitation to surprise Rocky, his family, and his crew during his retirement ceremony in Kentucky, scheduled for none other than May 18th, the same day we had been rescued by the Vigorous. The ceremony took place by the Mississippi River next to Rocky's ship. I sat in the back behind an officer who blocked me from Rocky's view. During the ceremony, officers talked about Rocky's last 30 years in the Coast Guard and the lives of the people he had touched inside and outside of the Coast Guard. Like the young woman you helped rescue 26 years ago, the last officer said as he called my name. Impossible, I heard him say as I walked toward him with this poster in his cap from 26 years ago. We hugged, and I finally said thank you. There was silence and tears as I shared the details of how our lives crossed paths on May 18, 1980. This is my story. I thank my parents who are here today for having had the courage of bringing me and my brother to a country where we have the opportunity to go as far as we want based on our efforts, where we can express our disagreements without fear of retribution, where we can change our society by getting involved, where we can follow our dreams, a country where we are free. Today, I challenge our young students to follow their dreams, to pursue them no matter how difficult they may seem, to seek the opportunities around them, to learn from others who have gone before them, and then work hard to achieve their goals. When they succeed, and they will, then I challenge them to reach out behind them to help someone else, to pay it forward, to be appreciative, and never, never forget those who lent them a hand. Thank you all, and God bless the United States of America.
Gracias, Lidia.